In a second.
Okay. Welcome everyone. Such an honor and really grateful for you all to join us. I know today's the last day of the UN and everybody is absorbed so much over the past week. How long have you all been here? 1 week. We've been here 2 weeks. So there has been so much going on, so much absorption, and so much learned, so many beautiful lessons. Thank you for joining us. And such an honor to be here with all of you. My name is Gayatri Khanna, and in my faith-based organization, I'm also known as Govinda Priya Devi Dasi, and I'll explain what that really means. But Govinda Priya, you can call me Govinda, you can call me Gayatri, I'm okay with either. And you can always raise your hands or just, interrupt, and we can have this as a nice discussion. Be happy to have a conversation. For my secular work, I am an investor, a real estate investor. I do have a very successful real estate company, which I'm the CEO of. And we invest in apartment complexes, specifically multifamily. I do purchase all over North America. And as a faith-based leader, I do hold a lot of responsible positions, which some of them are listed here. I am the second vice chair to the regional governing body, which includes North America so United States and Canada. I do serve as the vice president to GBC College, which is a college set up for leaders to train them in management. And I serve as the vice president. I do serve as the Vaishnavi minister. Vaishnavi is a denomination that we use, or name nomenclature that we use for women. And Vaishnavi is very significant because it actually means the women of the Lord. Okay, which we all are, children of the Lord. So Vaishnavi is specifically women of the Lord. I'm the minister for North America, and I do believe in succession. Succession has been spoken about. We always want to pass the baton to somebody responsible. And succession, and that's why you see one of our youth representatives over here. She's 17. We have her on the road. We want to create a legacy. That's our importance. If I can have somebody responsible to take on what I'm trying to do and move that forward and expand that forward, I think that'd be success of any work that we've done. So I am a part of the succession team and also a committee which nominates leaders. We want to make sure that in leadership roles, we have such people that understand what true empowerment is. So we have a vetting team that actually vets leaders to make sure they are fit to be leaders. They understand the cultural aspect. They understand the responsibility that comes from being in a leadership role. So these are just some of my brief introductions. I'm here to share my understanding and have sort of a discussion with all of you. And then I'd invite our secretary to the ministry to speak about one of our initiatives, which we feel is very, very important because safety and protection has to come before any kind of encouragement, right? I can talk about here, we should be empowered to do this, but there are women as I speak fearing for their life, right? If they speak something which is considered inappropriate, and I was just having a discussion that there's some parts of the world where even sitting in the front seat of a vehicle can be considered offensive. And we're privileged that we can stand here on this platform and try to create awareness and change. So she'll talk about protection, and then I'll invite our youth representative because we want to see that this continues. It doesn't end with us. This needs to continue because change takes time. It's over a period of time that we can create change. And we just have to be consistent with what we believe in. And the more people believe in this, definitely change is going to be possible. We have her wonderful nurse. She's trying to create that situation with nurses in creating education platforms where they're educated. Yeah, we have Jayanti. She works with the youth, empowering them. And what organization are you from? It's an NGO. No, she's from Mexico City. Already found connections. What does your organization do? It depends on how you look at it, but I basically look for economic empowerment for women, especially in indigenous. Amazing. Because I think economic empowerment is so crucial. I've worked with abuse victims and they cannot leave or move away from this situation because they're not economically empowered. They do not have financial stability. And once we have that stability, we have the strength. We have to create those strengths for women, and like we like to call Vaishnavis, so that they're strong. But over here, my brief introduction turned into a long introduction, but we're going to go into our presentation mode here. Let's see if I can get this through. Slideshow from the beginning. Okay. Oh, that's her. Changing bodies. Okay. So what we're talking about here is sacred ground. What comes to your mind when I say sacred ground? What do you think of when I say sacred ground? Just a thought. Throw out some words. Yes.
A place for meditation.
A place for meditation.
Protected space.
Protected space. Wonderful. What else? Anyone else?
Important.
Important?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yes. A place that has been blessed. Wonderful. Yes. Definitely. All of those are sacred spaces. And we think of something physical, somewhere we can stand. I'm just going to contradict this for a minute. I agree with all of you. But I think a sacred space is a space that we uplift ourselves from. The space within our hearts. That is a solid space which helps us uplift ourselves, uplift others, and also realize that the strength we get when we look at this word empower, does that mean that we're not powerful and somebody has to give us a vitamin or an IV? No, we are empowered. And that's why we like to call ourselves Vaishnavis, because we are the daughters and the children of whoever you call, of the Lord, of the universe, of the Supreme. We are all here with a purpose, right? And we are empowered. We don't need an artificial imposition on us or an IV drip to tell us that I'm empowered. No, I am empowered. The first most important thing is that I realize that I am empowered. If I need to charge my phone, I need to make sure it's connected to the power outlet. So the minute I realize that I am connected to something much more greater than myself, and that's my sacred space, that's my sacred ground, that's my foundation. Before any yoga practice or any practice where you're going to do intense work, what do? Grounding. We ground ourselves. The ground that we stand on is so crucial, so important. And what we have as children of the Lord or God or the universe is this sacred ground within each of our hearts. We need to realize that We are capable of amazing things, absolutely phenomenal things, because we're connected to the source. We have grounded. We're safe. We're protected. That's our space. And while I say that, you know, like I mentioned, that this space is not just a space, it's a space within. I'm not limited by being in a space, a temple or a church or anywhere. That space is within my heart. I can seek inspiration from there if I'm connected, if I remember I'm connected to the source. And we all need to remember that we are connected. We are already empowered because we are here with a purpose. We only need to awaken that. We only need to realize that we're all powerful. How do we do that? How do you think we can do that? Education? Yes, amazing. How else would you think?
Modeling.
Amazing. Modeling. That's one of the most powerful ways of educating. If I'm standing here and there's 70 people online watching us, and there's few of us over here, she's watching us. If you have a daughter at home and she's watching you take on leadership roles, responsibilities, managing things, standing up for what's right, what do you think you're teaching her? You're teaching her, you're educating her by role modeling, one of the most powerful ways of doing that. Even in ancient traditions, you see, we talk about saints and we talk about sages. They modeled a particular kind of behavior. And that's how we learned. If we consider ourselves empowered, because we are, and we have that sacred space within our hearts, if we consider and realize that, we need to start role modeling. We need to be examples, fine examples of well-educated, successful, humble, grounded women that can actually inspire and create change. And we have that within ourselves. And that's what will make us unshakable. Because sometimes when we think that I have to do it all alone, it's tiring, it's exhausting. That's why when we come to, these groups and these UN facilities or any kind of organization where we come together and we see different initiatives and we see how women from different aspects and different spheres taking different niches are working towards making a change. It may seem like drops of water in a bucket, but sooner or later, that bucket is going to be full. It's going to be full. The minute we realize that we have a role to play in a larger picture, so empowering. That's empowerment. It's not an IV drip. That's empowering. When I hear about this nursing, when I hear about in Mexico City, I was just in Chile. I was in Chile in Santiago a couple of weeks back, and they were telling me the situation in the schools and how girls are dropping out. And it's inspiring when somebody's trying to create, even if you helped one person, you never know that one person could create a revolution. It means a lot to that one person and could mean a lot to many people. So that makes us unshakable. We need to change our silence to voice. Voice our opinions. It doesn't have to be disrespectful. It can be very respectful. In fact, I feel that as I'm aging and I'm learning to be a little bit more respectful than I was. When you're young, you're like this reformer and you think I exist and I've arrived kind of a space that when you're young. And then over a period of time, you realize that I have to coexist. We all have to weave in together to create change. I'm not this Messiah. you know, I have the power, and that power teaches me to weave in a way that we can create this beautiful tapestry that creates protection. Yes. So we need to weave in. We need to forget the fears, rise above our fears, and find a purpose. And I hope my friends won't mind me sharing. Jessica, right here, she works with the youth. She has a tumor. And she was just sharing with me a little while back that, how she diagnosed the tumor. And the minute someone could become depressed from having a tumor. But she said, I found my purpose. Time is limited, and I want to create change. And I was like, I'm here to speak. No, I'm here to learn from you because you're showing me by example what it means to be inspired. She's a cancer survivor. We're capable of a lot more than we think we are. Our bodies are capable of a lot more than we think we are. So just imagine when we put the mind and the body and the soul together, what transformation we can create. Having said all of that we need that inspiration within. Yes, great, wonderful. But my sisters sitting in Kazakhstan or someplace, or Uzbekistan or some other stans or somewhere else where they're marginalized, they're going to say, this is pep talk. We have to face the reality because barriers do still remain, even if I am inspired. I realize I'm successful and I am empowered and I want to do something, but barriers remain. There is inequality in our societies. In any sphere, whether it's our workforce, whether it's our faith-based organizations, whether it's you take anywhere, and somewhere it's even to the point of their safeties at stake. Yeah, we may be talking about, our rights, equal wage, or our, reproductive rights, or these different rights, but there is some places where women are fighting for just trying to be safe and secure. So while I give this pep talk, I do realize that there are barriers and there are inconsistencies. But we need to realize that that's not because we are not empowered. It's because systems have yet not realized the power of equality. Systems have yet not realized that we're equally children of the Lord. And just different bodily functions of having different bodies is not a limitation for intellectual capacity, for what we can offer to the society, for what we can do. So systems may fail us, but we shouldn't fail each other. Mm-hmm. We should become each other's support. One of my mentors and my teachers always say something very, very beautiful. And I literally quote it every single day or remember it every single day. How many, you're from California. You've been to the Muirwood Forest, maybe. Has anybody heard about the Muirwood? Yes. Muir woods, they have trees that are so tall. But one of the most unique things about those trees is that they have very, very shallow roots. Very shallow roots. Now, the surprising thing is that in spite of these high intensity earthquakes that happen in California, they still stand tall. You know why? Their roots don't go deep down. Their roots goes sideways. And you know what they do? They intertwine with each other's roots. So one tree standing here intertwines with roots from the other trees, and that intertwines with the other trees. And sooner or later, there is this web that strengthens not only that tree, but each and every tree. That's the support system we need to create for ourselves. Can you imagine that a high intensity earthquake cannot shake such trees down because we have community? We have spaces, we have safe spaces, we have spaces like this where we can just cling on for support. We strive to stand and do our responsibility as providing shade for others. As trees, we become shade givers. We give shade to others, we protect, we empower. But for our nourishment, we cling on to each other so that we don't fall. We don't become frustrated. We don't become depressed. We don't give up hope. Because this is a long haul. It's going to take time. When you want to change the consciousness or thinking pattern or customs or traditions across generations, it's going to take time. It's going to take time. It's going to take realizations. It's going to take a lot of effort. But we have each other. Remember to spread your wings sideways. Spread your roots sideways. Find that community, that support where we can cling on to each other. So I say it's a two-pronged approach. One is always remember within your own heart, you are extremely, extremely powerful. So powerful, you're capable of making a lot of change in your own life and in the life of others. And at the same time, systems need to change. And you do everything you can to facilitate that systems change and create a system that is supportive for yourself and for others. Don't try to fight this battle alone because you'll either fail, get frustrated, or fall apart. And that's not the role model you want to set for anyone. You want to see any obstacle that comes in front of you as a stepping stone and not a roadblock. Just rise above it. And you can do that with support. You can do that with each other. And it doesn't even have to be the same organization. If I'm finding something really difficult, I might just call you. And you'll say, you know what, I'm facing the same problem. And I have a shoulder to cry on. And we discuss it, and we move ahead, and we recharge, and we do the same thing over again. And we continue to strive. So it's so important that when we create this two-pronged approach, not only are we going to survive, we will thrive, we will support. And this whole process of understanding and awakening the presence of something supreme within our heart that helps us create change will awaken within our hearts. We become invincible. We can challenge, we can create, we can lead, and we can be one of the most amazing communities. And then, as my friend here said, we role model that. Our future is transformed. How many times have you heard that the impressions a child gets? You know, I have two boys, and I always am conscious of what kind of men they're going to be. How are they seeing that their father is treating their mother? How are they seeing that how I'm responding? How are they seeing that how I deal? What kind of women are they going to attract in their lives? Because all of that is foundational. That's how they're learning. That's how they're absorbing the environment. If they see their father is respectful to me, respects my opinion, that's what they're going to learn to do. That's the change we need to create for our future. That's how our future is going to be transformed. That, so building equality, ensuring access, protecting rights, these are all fundamental principles. And through systems, in whichever organization we're working in, we need to try our best with logical understanding to create that space, in such a way that we can actually evolve together. I'm going to make room for our next presenter, who's going to share a little glimpse of what we really do in terms of protection. But when we're rooted within and supported outside, women can truly transform the world. We are change makers. We are the first teachers. The children spend a lot of time with us when they forget about when they're born, 9 months that they're in there. I was actually watching a podcast recently, and one of the famous comedians, he was mentioning that he has this problem. He's never on time. And one of the psychologists, he said, was it that when you were, when your mother was pregnant, did she go through a stressful period? And that's why, and he's like, how did you know? Yeah, we were in a very, very distressed state. And he said that because at that time, when a woman is stressed, that affects the upbringing of the child or developing certain, circuits in the brain, for, lack of a better word, that does not let, the child doesn't develop the sense of time. They feel that, oh, it's 5 minutes, it's like eternity is there, So there's so much is affected, so much impact you can have on the generations to come. And that power is not with anyone else. Even if you say, the child is born and then we have a lot of other people that influence, but the 9 months the child you're bearing, you have a lot of influence. Our second generation is very, very dependent on how we think and feel. And protection is definitely one really important aspect. And I'm going to invite Sham Mohini. She's our secretary. She will sit.
Okay, actually, I won't because I won't be able to see.
Would you like to move in over here?
Thank you. That's
Closer,
okay.
and I can move there.
Yeah, that's fine. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. My name is Samohini Devidasi or Lily Walia. You already explained our spiritual name. I am entrepreneur. I co-founded two small companies, one in IT related. Thank you. And the other one is an import business. We import natural stone, nothing related to the IT, right? But my background is in the human relations, and through this background, I have been able to assist the Visionary Ministry North America, as well as other initiatives like Devotee Care, involving child protection. So as you can see, protection is very important for us. And today we'd like to speak about something that we rarely name when we discuss leadership. And it is very important, and that is safety. We often hear the words like vision, strength, sacrifice, strategy, impact, resilience, but not safety. And that is the foundation. Not only physical safety, but emotional safety, psychological safety, spiritual safety. Without safety, really leadership becomes merely a performance. But with safety, leadership becomes authentic service. Many of us were raised, especially women, with the unspoken ideology that we need to be strong. Do not complain. You have to carry others. Do not talk back. Endure. And somewhere along the line, along the way, strength became confused with silence. But when we reflect spiritually, we see a different model. In the wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita, the great warrior Arjuna, and great leader actually, he collapses in the middle of the battlefield. He is bewildered by seeing his own relatives in the battlefield, ready to fight for a kingdom. His body trembles, his bow in his hand to sleeps, and openly admits, "My mind is confused. I'm overwhelmed." He doesn't pretend to be strong. He does not hide his vulnerability. And what happened next? The speaker of the Gita, the all attractive Krishna, listens. He does not interrupt. Instead, he creates a space of safety, a space for dialogue, for reflection, for clarity. In fact, the entire Bhagavad Gita emerges because Arjuna first felt so safe enough to say, "I cannot do this alone." And that is leadership. There are many women who lead beautifully in public. They speak with clarity, organize with excellence, inspire others, and carry entire communities. But behind those door closed, there is often another story. There's another story always behind those closed doors. That's the pressure, loneliness, emotional fatigue, depression, and sometimes no one is asking a very simple question. How are you? Really, how are you? We can come to you and say, "How are you? By the way, is the project finished? How are you? Did you take the report that we needed for the next meeting?" The intention is not in really finding out how is she doing, but did you finish the work that was assigned to you? So they are expected to be the strong ones, the patient ones, the always available one, the one who holds everyone else together. But who is holding them? Too often, leadership becomes isolation. And isolation is totally unsustainable. Our tradition teaches that bhakti, devotion, is inherently relational. It exists through connection. So why do we imagine that leadership must be solitary? The idea that a leader must never need help is a total misconception. It comes from ego, from the false belief that vulnerability weakens authority.
Mhm.
True authority comes from alignment with truth, humility, compassion, empathy, and accountability. When true leaders do not feel safe, or when they don't feel safe, something happens. They stop sharing honestly. They hide their struggles. They overextend themselves. They begin operating from a survival mode instead of wisdom. Service becomes heavy, and joy becomes duty. And slowly, quietly, burnt out enters. and stress takes over. A leader who is unsupported does not suddenly collapses publicly. She slowly erodes privately. This is happening more often than we would like to acknowledge, and we must be courageous enough to name it. Safety is not weakness. It is rooted in the principle of ahimsa, non-violence, and not only non-violence towards others, but towards ourselves, oneself. If a leader feels that she must constantly suppress emotion, deny exhaustion, and silence her needs, that too is a subtle form of violence. Spiritual maturity includes compassion for oneself. Even great saints have mentors, teachers, have guides. No one evolves on isolation. So what if we redefine strength? Strength doesn't mean never breaking. Strength is breaking and seeking guidance. Breaking, falling down, and be able to get up with someone's help. And Govinda Priya very nicely gave the example of the trees. So strength is carrying responsibility while building support. Strength is leading others while also allowing others to lead us when needed. Imagine if leaders model this openly. Imagine if leaders could say, I need help. I cannot do this by myself. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. What kind of culture would that create? It would certainly create a culture of care. It will create safety for everyone, because when leaders pretend to be invisible, followers also hide their struggles too. But when leaders model healthy vulnerability, they give others permission to be human. In Sanskrit, we use the word sangha, meaning association. Association is transformative because in safe association, we are seen, heard, gently corrected, and strengthened together. A leader without healthy association becomes fragile. A leader with supportive association becomes strong. Support systems are not luxuries. They are fundamental foundations. Every leader needs a confidant, a mentor, a peer circle, a trusted guy. Trust, very important. Emotional support, and a space where she is not a leader, but simply a soul on a journey. So what can we do? We can intentionally build safety into our leadership structures. We can check on leaders beyond performance metrics. We can normalize conversation about mental health. Yes, mental health is there. We can create confidential sharing spaces. And again, this is very important, confidentiality. Safe spaces, encourage rest without guilt. No, I cannot take over. This is not going to be done. I'm going to let them down. We need to build cultures that embrace holistic care rather than pure hierarchical care. We care for seniors, we care for this management that we have to care for all. We must not ask, how was the program? How was the project? Successful? How is the leader doing? Is she okay? Is she tired? Is she going to rest? Take some time to rewind, to reset? Or next one, and next one, and next one. So because a flourishing leader creates flourishing communities. Consider the example of a mother giving birth, right? So much attention is placed on the baby, of course. Is he sleeping all right? Is he eating all right? Sleeping well? But what about the mother? She is the child's first teacher and the main source of nourishment. So, although she's expected to serve others without putting on her oxygen mask first, she still has to do the service. She still has to care. And leadership works in the same way. So support is essential. When leaders allow themselves to be supported, and when they create safe spaces for others, strength grows, creativity flourishes, and communities thrive. I was talking so beautifully about this. So asking for help becomes a model of courage. The future of leadership is not about who can carry the heaviest burden alone. It is about who can build circles of trust, empathy, and share strength. Share strength. I once came across this thought that perfectly captured this idea, and I quote, if a leadership is a temple, safety is the foundation stone. If leadership is a tree, safety is the soil. If leadership is service, safety is the space that allows service to remain joyful. Every soul needs support. Every leader needs safety. So this principle extends beyond individual leaders. Child protection and initiatives that support safe families are also expressions of this truth. His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder and Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, explained that in Vedic ancient times, the king's duty was to protect the women, the children, the brahmanas, the elderly, and cows. So this reflecting that leadership has always been defined by protection. And when we nurture what we nurture today will shape the future. Leadership is not merely authority or influence. It is the responsibility to protect the vulnerable and create environments where people can, again, thrive. When children are protected and families feel safe, trust grows. And trust is what gives leadership its credibility and sustainability. Safe environments empower people. They build confidence and healthy boundaries. They encourage accountability, and they create conditions where women and children can lead. True leadership is not measured by how much one can carry alone. It is measured by the care, safety, and support that surrounds it. When leaders feel valued and encouraged, they lead with clarity, serve with joy, and inspire others to rise. Communities flourish not because leaders are invincible, but because they are nurtured. And in turn, they nurture others. We cannot give what we don't have. As Francis of Assisi once said, "It is in giving that we receive." And effective leadership also means supporting fellow leaders. Sometimes the greatest act of leadership is stepping aside so that someone else may lead. Shared leadership, mutual accountability, and a culture of care strengthen the entire community. Again, prioritizing safety and care is the basis of sustainable, transformative leadership. At its heart, strong communities begin with safe families, and safe families begin with healthy relationships. And from strong families, trustworthy leaders emerge. My hope for this event, CSW70, is that we leave here inspired by the many valuable programs and ideas shared through the past days, whether online or the UN grounds, and that we reflect on how we can implement them or strengthen the programs that we already have in our own communities. I'm especially happy to see our young girls listening and taking notes because they are the future leaders who will carry this world forward. The future of leadership is already sitting among us and they are paying attention. So let's work together to ensure that the next generation will be inspired to be nurturing leaders. Thank you very much.
So we want to invite Ila. She's our youth representative. Would you like to move? No? That was a cute picture. You guys can stand here? Yeah. Is there enough room for you to? Yeah. Not trip over the wires.
Okay, hello everyone. As they previously mentioned, I'm the representative for the Veterinary Ministry North America. Photo of me up there. Um, Outside of being a youth representative, I'm currently a high school senior graduating in May, and my main interests lie somewhere in women's empowerment, public health, and basically equity in general. And so that's kind of what I'm exploring right now. Not really sure exactly where I'm going with all those things, but we'll find out as we go along. Outside of course, organization. I'm also the co-founder of Her Catalyst. It's a organization we founded to create accessible conference opportunities for young women interested in STEM. It was actually inspired by my first visit here at the UNCSW conference 2 years ago. So after seeing just how inspiring the conference was and the kinds of opportunities that people can get from these experiences, went back home and we're like, we should start designing these conference opportunities for other young women who may be interested in conferences specifically, just because of, although it's a great privilege to be here and I recognize how much it takes for me to be here as well. I think there are other young women out there who may not have the same access, who may not have the same financial resources, and of course, knowing about the opportunity and all these kinds of barriers that can exist to those professional opportunities. So that's what kind of inspired Her Catalyst. Besides that, I'm an avid speech and debater, competitor, and mentor as well. I also lead the Malaya Nations team at my school. And yeah, I pretty much am interested in these three areas. So today, over the next 10 minutes or so, I kind of want to share with you what I believe should be the future for youth leadership and specifically for integrating young women into leadership today. So without further ado. So as a kid, and that little photo you saw of me earlier, as a kid, I was often known as the bossy kid. I mean, I vividly remember in about third grade when we were leading classroom cleanup at the end of the day, and a classmate, of course, I was the one leading, as you could probably tell. And a classmate came up to me and told me, "You're so bossy, just like your mom." And it was pretty shocking at first. I was like, okay, dang, okay. I guess we're bossy today. But and I was a little hurt by it, 8 years old. So, but I continued leading the classroom cleanup and life went on. And although I was known as that bossy little kid, I think for me, thankfully, it didn't really affect the way I began to see leadership in the future or how I saw myself in these leadership roles. But I know there are other young women out there who have had that affect them, who have had that kind of mindset in the way women's leadership is sometimes perceived, affect how they enter leadership roles, not in in high school, but also in professional spaces as well. And growing up, I've realized that that's not like a unique experience. I'm just one data point in a multitude of data points. Like I was reading earlier today, last week, in a study of performance evaluation, 66% of female leaders have received negative personality critiques such as bossy, compared to 1% of their male counterparts when they were doing very similar work, meaning that oftentimes the way we perceive women's leadership can be different in society. And so, kind of thinking about those trends and looking at how my own experience and other women's experiences have been not just in playgrounds and classrooms, but also in professional spaces and boardrooms as well. Well, I began to realize that a lot of times women's leadership isn't just about access or isn't just about creating providing those opportunities, but also realizing how we are defining these spaces that we are giving them and how we are perceiving their leadership as well. And so over those experiences, and especially throughout high school, I've really been exploring the question of how can we make youth leadership not just symbolic, but also truly collaborative and accessible to all? How can we ensure that we're not just integrating youth just for optics? How can we ensure that they're not just like a media strategy, but they're actually in positions where they're affecting decision making and they're actually creating change? Because oftentimes we see like in current roles, as youth leadership begins to rise all over the world, we become increasingly aware of the impact that youth can make. A lot of times youth are not actually the ones making the change, and we're going to explore more of that. But basically today I want to focus on how we can bridge that gap between existing leaders and emerging youth change makers who may be in positions of leadership and what it means to really have genuine partnership. So going back to a bit of history, historically, a lot of youth leadership has been about access. The United Nations was founded in 1945. And one of the core tenets of the United Nations was gender equality, as we all know. And the Commission on the Status of Women was then founded in 1936. Over time, with the Beijing Platform for Action in 1995, we began to emphasize not just having gender equality, but also having women affect decision-making spaces. And so more recently, we begin to integrate youth into what those decision-making spaces can be, with in 2018, the United Nations passing their youth strategy to bring youth into UN decision-making. And so right now, we're really at a forefront of debating how exactly we can effectively bring youth into these spaces. And so that gap is also one of the things that guides the bachelor ministry, as we explained earlier. But kind of that idea that there are already young women and young people out there who are hungry to create change. They already have this power. Yes, they still need to look, they're going to develop leadership skills. I think that's like a lifelong process. But a lot of times they already have that hunger for change. It's recognizing that hunger and creating safe spaces that is really important right now, beyond just having those like leadership positions or leadership titles, to ensuring that they can actually affect the changes being made right now. And I believe one of the issues with the way we currently look at youth leadership is that because we've been so focused on access, sometimes it's very easy for us to stop there. To think that once we've given them a position or a title, or once they're just in those rooms, that they are now making a change. But we can't confuse access with influence. We can't confuse them just being in a room with actually having an impact on the decisions being made. Because right now we have young women who have seats, but they don't have voices. They have positions, but they don't have trust. And so we collectively fail what we were trying to achieve in the first place. And I think the worst part of this is that we're under the illusion that we're creating change, but sometimes that illusion blocks us from seeing how much change we truly created, because it gives us almost a false sense of security where we believe that now we've given youth and given young women those positions, and now we have created the change that needs to be created. But if we don't have them actually affecting decisions, then we are not done yet. And so I think today the question is not just whether youth have access, but also are they in a position to impact the decisions that we're making in these organizations? And so I feel like I also saw this when I first came to the UNCSW conference 2 years ago. I saw that we had some youth delegates. We definitely had youth delegates at the conference. And there's obviously a time and place for when they will be in decision-making areas. But a lot of times their voice, we integrated their opinions, but we didn't fully integrate them in the way we affect decision-making and as a full part of that team. And so just reflecting on that idea and how I believe youth leadership and young women in leadership is perceived, I propose 3 shifts for all of you today. The first thing that I believe we need to be doing more of is moving from passive listening to having more intentional mentorship that is rooted in curiosity. I think as leaders, it's very easy for people to kind of have that cliche of a leader needs to listen. I think that's a very like thrown around term. And sometimes we forget that listening doesn't just end there. We're not just hearing what they have to say. Yes, it's a very important first step, but you're also playing with the ideas that young women bring to you. And so I think one thing that led me to reflect on that is that I've had the privilege of being in rooms where decisions were being made and I was kind of just there. And I've also had the privilege of being in rooms where mentors like these 2 lovely ladies have challenged me, have asked me questions. You know, as a speech debater, people have debated with me. We've gone back and forth. We've had those playful interactions and have actually grappled with ideas and actually had me sit down and think about what exactly we're discussing. And I think there's a very key distinction there to be found, because sometimes we tend to equate listening with mentorship when mentorship needs to be a lot more intentional with that than that. And so I don't think it's enough for now as leaders for us to wait for young women to come to us or wait for a young woman to come to us asking for mentorship. I think it's really important right now for us to all go out there and find the young women who want to be mentored, or find young women who have the potential to be in leadership spaces or who would like to be in leadership spaces but don't really know where to go yet. I think it should be a active effort from both the mentor side and obviously the student side as well. And I think that first key shift in showing that we're genuinely including their ideas and genuinely debating them and showing them that we value and trust what they have to say as leaders is essential. The second shift that I propose today is moving beyond just including them in these spaces to actually creating safe spaces that are rooted in values such as humility and trust. I think that is often built in little things, as Shamoni Mataji mentioned over here, but that's built in the little things of having those small interactions. That's in crossing the street together and having dinner together and having small conversations and valuing what they have to say, not just in the important topics that are being discussed, but also in their personal endeavors and what matters to these young women. And I think that allows us to have gratitude for one another. I think one of the barriers to integrating more youth, and sometimes one thing that can scare established leaders off a little bit, is that you're going to have disagreements. You're going to have healthy conflict when you bring youth into these spaces, but having that gratitude and having that trust really helps you navigate those conflicts better, because now we are able to see each other as whole people rather than just ideas that we're integrating into these decision-making spaces. And so Sanatan Dharma, essentially the spiritual faith-based ideas that the Vaishnavi ministry essentially stems from, it stems from curiosity. One of the core principles is asking questions. And so when we create judgment-free spaces where students actually feel free to ask important questions, ask hard questions, and know that you won't be offended, and know that they can make mistakes, we create a space where we're not just including them, but we're also showing them that you can lead here. And finally, I believe that we need to move beyond quantifiable positions and titles to emphasizing values-driven leadership. As a high school senior just gone through the college admissions process, I think one of the things that I've been seeing lately that has been kind of concerning is that obviously, as anyone who might know who's been through that process, or if you have any like loved ones who are going through that process right now, you probably know that having those leadership positions, being able to show like the impact you've had over high school is really important to basically marketing yourself to these colleges, right? And I've heard some of my classmates say, like, when because they're all stressed, college admissions results are coming out, and they're all saying, if I don't get into so and so college, or if I don't get into such and such a rank of a college, then my work is wasted. Essentially, all that stuff that I did over high school, what did I do it for? And it's really concerning to hear because I think one of the key things to recognize from that is that sometimes some of the youth leaders that we're integrating into these spaces are seeing these merely as positions or as titles and as quantifiable things rather than seeing the impact that it has on them as a person, like as in the values that they now carry. And so shifting that emphasis from not only quantifiable things or data and statistics, but also to recognize the values that people are cultivating through these positions is essential. Because when we focus more on values, then established leaders are able to teach us values like accountability, holding yourself accountable, holding other youth change makers accountable, and holding leaders accountable as well. We're able to learn values such as humility, learn how to be respectful but not complacent, and essentially learn that leadership is service. At its core, it's not a position or a title or just merely being in a room, but being there to serve the people and the cause that you are so passionate about. And so just going back to that 8-year old self that was being called bossy, thankfully that did not stop me. But sometimes I sit here and I will think about the other young women who may be more hesitant to enter leadership positions because they've had like experiences like that in the past. And I wonder how these girls currently feel. And so with integrating more youth leadership, I believe it's really important that we emphasize those safe spaces where they can feel like they're not perceived as bossy or they're not overbearing when they're entering these leadership positions. And so the leaders in these rooms have the ability to change the way young women are perceived in leadership and how they are included. And it doesn't take anything grand. It just takes small actions. It takes caring for each other, having those relationships, creating judgment-free zones, having trust in what a young leader wants to bring to the table, and showing them that you care. And so if you didn't get anything really from all that I've just currently explained, I would say just one thing that everyone can do. Find a young woman in your life who wants to enter leadership spaces. Find someone and challenge them. Debate with them, talk with them, argue with them, whatever it takes to get their mind thinking and to show that you value their opinion and you actually want to see them influencing decision-making spaces, not just having access to them. Find one young woman who you can mentor and bring into these spaces with purpose. And so we can't fall into the illusion of merely giving access if we're not having influence. And as leaders of today, and I've discussed this with these ladies as well, as leaders of today, you have the responsibility of creating the world that I'm going to adult in tomorrow, that our next generation is going to be and take care of tomorrow. Essentially, you're giving that in our hands. So choose wisely, make good decisions. I'm sure you all will, and keep that in mind. And I think most importantly, when we give young women trust and we give them access to influence as well, we show them that they are trusted and guided and they're not going to wait for the future when they're eventually in those established leadership positions to now make an impact many years later. Rather, they begin leading right now. So I think that's essentially what I have to say. I hope that kind of made sense. If anyone would like to add like maybe an opinion or a question or any like discussion, that would be welcome as well. But
Once you wowed.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you a share,
oh, thank you.
but we can have a little bit of a discussion. And I have definitely noted your 3 points. I was listening.
Thank you.
So if there's any reflections from anyone's side, we'd really appreciate. Yes.
I just wanted to say you're so inspiring.
Thank you.
I am a high school junior, and so what you said really resonated with me because I've been called bossy too, and sometimes it's like kind of like this very barrier that stops me from going further because you're afraid of being judged and you're afraid of, suffering these consequences that you shouldn't have to think about if you're really just trying to serve people. And also, what you said about thinking of leadership as a quantifiable thing. I've been that girl that thinks, oh, I have to do these many things in order to have an impact. But really focusing, I really want to focus around one thing to, not only grow myself as a person, but to grow myself around my community. And so, yeah, I paid so much attention to you because I agree with everything.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Raise your hand in this room if you've been called bossy.
This is the bossy room.
And it wasn't just a title, it was actually like told to me. I was like, okay.
Have you been here the full 2 weeks?
Yeah.
And I see your blue badges. You've been in some of the spaces, right?
Yeah, over here.
Well, so what are your takeaways from being in those spaces? What have you seen? What women have you seen leading? And do you think that has been meaningful? Or do you still think that there is some form of tokenization from being at the table?
Yeah, actually, we were discussing this, but I've actually seen a lot more youth delegates this year, which is really, really like interesting to see. I think we had some of them actually like interview us, and we did a couple of things and met some of them. So it's really cool to see like other young people in these rooms as well. And I think I definitely saw a couple more young speakers this time where they were, especially during the town hall meeting when they were discussing the merger of UN Women and UNFPA. So I don't remember the exact acronym. I always get mixed up with that one. But when they were discussing that merger, I did see some young people asking those questions, which was really, really exciting to see because I think sometimes, like I said, it can become very symbolic and we kind of forget to take that next step. And so I like seeing their voices in the discussion and seeing them actually question the decision, to challenge it a little, ask these important questions. And so I find that really interesting. I think there's always still like work to be done. It's obviously still a very evolving process, but I definitely think I saw some inspiring things this time with just how youth development has been.
Yes, actually, during the town hall meeting, it was very inspiring to see so many young girls and the questions that they were asking. There was one in particularly that actually caught our attention because he literally said, or expressed that, well, all of you are leaving. You may not be here next year, but we are here and we plan to stay. What's your legacy? It's a very powerful statement. So to her point, whatever actions we take or we miss is already impacting. It's already making a change, and it's already starting a process in how our youth are engaging. So let's think and let's act with accountability, with care, with wisdom.
I actually think that our youth is very, very well informed. And that has a lot to do with, internet, social media. And I really think that there are some real great advantages of that. The world has shrunk because of the amount of experience. And I mean, if I was to think what I was at 17, the kind of information that our youth already has. If I go to universities and the first few questions that people ask me when they know I'm a faith-based woman is like, how does your organization treat the environment? How does it treat your women? These are questions very young children are asking, boys and girls, because they want to be associated with an organization that's fair, that's thoughtful. And it's so powerful. In fact, I feel so impressed with the questions, with their sincerity and the foresightedness. And I think that comes from a lot of exposure. What they're hearing, what's happening in different parts of the world. They're so well informed, and it's really inspiring. In fact, I picked up a lot of things from the youth that we met. They were doing some short interviews, and I was telling her, that's a great idea. You know, they're so upbeat, they're so trendy. It sounds so nice. Let's do that next time.
Yeah.
And you know, we picked up on a few ideas that the youth were interviewing us. They were just going around for the different organization. They had really fun ways of interview, pick a word, say a word, you know, and I thought, wow, you can learn from so much from them. And I think they have a special space that, like last night, to give you an example, I was not going to make a PowerPoint. I'm naturally a speaker. I like to stand and speak. And she's like, maybe we should make a PowerPoint. And I said, okay, I'm going to tell you what I'm talking about. And she plugged it in and she said, I have this AI tool and Notebook LM, and within 5 minutes, zoom, there's a PowerPoint right there. We need our youth. You kidding me? How are we going to lead anything without them? So it's important. Yes, very important. Don't let anyone tell you that you're bossy. And even if they do, you are. And it doesn't matter. We need it. We need bossy people. Okay. Are we getting a lot of
Just wanna say
questions?
that I'm carrying with me so much knowledge from this talk. I appreciate and value everything that you shared. And I love how all your messages interconnect, like from the beginning of finding our power inside, like racing and finding that sport. And I love the example of the woods. I used to live in California, so I was there, and I imagined I was like, oh yeah, I remember the roots and everything. And if I think about the forest grows as an ecosystem. They don't, there's no discrimination. And why we as humans say like, oh, this person has more value or this opinion has more value. We should be growing together like a forest. And I love about the safety part and how we should live like not only in the spaces but also at home. Like how like I think I could relate to being this strong woman in the work in other systems, but at home there was something else happening. And I think this part of modeling and being authentic everywhere. And then I love about the youth, like you blew my mind, like you're such an inspiration. I was like, wow, like this girl's gonna go so far, and you're already doing.
He's already doing so much, so.
And it made me think the value of youth, because when we are in these systems that are failing us, sometimes we've been there for so long that we don't question them. But when the youth comes and they are not so accustomed to that system, they start asking her questions. And that's when we start questioning and oh yeah, you're right. Like why are we doing things like for so long? Maybe we can try new things. So I love that. Please keep sharing your message with everyone. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
That
you.
was beautiful. I actually, while you were saying that, I think as the older generation, I don't want to be called older generation, but you know, when I'm sitting with someone younger here, okay, the older generation, our responsibility is not just to accept what they're saying, but to not just listen, but to hear in a way, uh, because you know, I was just sharing with all of them when I was coming here, my son sent me an app. And he said, Mama, don't worry about going by the subway. Just use this app. And this is much more better than Uber and Lyft. And it's much more reasonable. Just use this app. And I was like, you know, just, you know, it's born and raised in California. I didn't bother. And just yesterday, because we walked so much, I said, okay, let me just plug it in. It was 1/3 the price everywhere. And I've been, you know, thinking just it takes a little bit of humility to take lessons from anywhere and everywhere. If I just realized that I can be a little humble and he could know more than me, he could, and he does. In certain aspects, he does know more than me. And certain aspects of wisdom, or you know, the number of years I've lived, I could have more experience. They could have more knowledge. And when, as leaders, we're willing to accept that fact, then such a healthy combination and such a beautiful relationship can develop. I'm going to go back and tell my son that I said that I didn't use the app, but that I really valued. One of the best apps, by the way, Empower. I'm going to say it all the time because I stayed here 2 weeks and I didn't use it. And the last 2 days I've been using it. So yeah, there's a lot to learn from our youth and a lot to just takes a little bit of humility on our part to say that it's, you had a question?
Yes.
You have a reflection?
Yeah,
Yes.
I have reflection.
Sure.
Question.
Yes, please.
Because I know that basically women are the lofty creature of God. When God made men and women, obviously men and women they have some kind of power which they can use. And I'm so much influenced by Mataji. He was talking about the culture of care, leadership. And this leadership could be mingled both as we don't need to say the older generation, young generation, but the generation between two when it's mingled, like our young ambassador. She has some idea. She know from her childhood what she see, what she learn, and what she want to do. And that influence will make among the peers to think about broadly. And I have to give emphasis. I'm a nurse in the hospital. I was so influenced to the mother, Mataji. You are talking about the care. The family is the basic institution. The child learns everything. And mother is the first teacher, then comes the school. So, being a woman, you got so much blessings from God. You have so much powers. A man, if educated, can make another man to be educated. But if a woman is educated, she can make the whole family, whole world educated. What I mean, women have that power, but we need our integrity, care, compassion, accountability, and excellence. And we have our planning, we have to organize, we have to cooperate, and we have to report means what's happening in the society and direct. Once a woman watches these things in her own heart, definitely there will be change, big change in the society. We know in the present day society what is happening. When men taking a decision, they doing somewhere something good, but mainly they're distracting from the mainstream, how to maintain the peace. But with this kind of discussion and conference, and I'm so glad that our Western society organized this seminar. So I'm so touched because I'm going to the Hare Krishna temple Islam, but when I heard that this thing is happening, and it makes like that, there is an awakening, there is a realization of what is humanity, and we notice some way we can contribute or we can share, and this society will be transformed. Here, the intellectual society, thinking and discussing, but don't keep it inside a small group. Make it broader way. So this impact will be taught to the rural area. Like here we're discussing in United Nations, we are in Manhattan, everything. Take it to the Queens, take it to the Bronx, take it to the Staten Island, where the objective of this idea can reach out. And not only this stipulated society or the intellectual society will be only influenced. Yes, of course, leadership is necessary. Without leadership, it can't be transformed. But anyway, I'm so proud of getting all the speakers and all the questions from the
First of all,
dignitaries and everybody.
First of all, thank you. Thank you for being here. And thank you for being one of those men that actually show up for something like this?
Of course, I have to tell you, when I was doing my university, I don't know why, it comes to my mind. I was doing a course on women empowerment through self-help group. And my intention was to do it NGO in the future. I did my research on human rights and child rights. And I didn't understand when there was a abortion, when there was a Indian society that the abortion, a girl child, then they have to abort it. It is so pathetic. You know why? They do that because in that tradition, they have to give dowry. But society changed. Now it have a tremendous change and the need of women. When you only the men's society, what I can say, a lot of things to say, but I'm not going in detail. But the thing is, we have to respect women. Women is that's why for mother and motherland is superior to heaven. So wherever you come, never forget, and where you come from, never forget. And mother is always more than happy. God bless all the women, and we hope we can try to contribute a little bit how much we can to transform this.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing, and we've noted your points as well, going to the rural places. So I think we're about time. We're so grateful. We didn't get to meet you. And thank you so much for coming.
Oh, I just wanted to add to your point. Thank you for bringing up topic. I'm also mentioned briefly by both of you, were, I believe, exemplary mothers. You didn't even go into that area, but this is essential. It's so subtle. We tend to forget about it. Every child that comes into this world, their first leader. That's
Yes.
fortunate enough to grow up with a family of children. I watched my mother, who's an unassuming person. She took the reins.
She was still bossy.
After to the Boston.
Maybe bossy is the word.
Yeah.
It might just come across as, being a compliment.
I always said it was always a compliment.
No,
No, because how I always said it was like, when my bigger boss said it, I said, oh, but does that mean that I'm able to visualize something and be able to direct people and execute it effectively instead of haphazardly? But yes, sorry, I know you were still talking. Sorry.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing. We just didn't get to introduce. We met. I'm sorry, we didn't get to know. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself? Because we're such a small group, we like to know each other. We know everyone else. Yeah.
I'm actually here waiting.
Oh. Oh, thank you. What's the next event about?
Here and I represent childhood.
Oh, wonderful.
It's a very different age group.
So little children?
Our focus is the early
Early childhood.
education, and we support
Amazing.
Where everything begins.
Yes,
Yeah.
the foundation.
That's the foundation.
We've been talking about early childhood and, the impact that early childhood could have on an individual. So thank you. Thank you for your work and thank you for being here.
Thank you for doing this. This should be presented every day for breakfast.
That
was a good one.
An honor to be with all of you.
Yes, I want to say congratulations for both of three of you.
Oh,
It's very inspiring for us to hear and you to work with the youth and to work with other women. It's really inspiring for us. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
it really builds our confidence. And this is the roots that I'm talking about. Because sometimes you're put down, but then there's a balance. You'll find people that appreciate the work you do. And sometimes you find people that, just like right now, we were getting a comment which was nasty. And then sometimes you get a comment which is kind and encouraging. So it's nice to have that balance.
Just to add, Definitely knowing at least the two ladies on the end a little bit more. I met them, I think, 2 years ago in person, and they definitely walk their talk. They definitely, like, I'm one of the visitors. Um, and it's not just that they're bossy, it's that they're so compassionate. And I think as a leader, you have to also embody this nurturing and this compassion and this also this upliftment of others. And, I definitely don't want to glorify them too much, but they definitely, all three of them actually do it. And I definitely want to tell you guys that it's not just a presentation. This is actually who they are as a person. So, it's definitely an honor to be amongst you guys.
I think we should be respectful to you to just have you arrange. We're past our time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you for
everyone.
the opportunity. Disconnect from there. Disconnect from there.
I know.